Hi, it's Jeremy Shatton from An Earful. Welcome back to Discover Music with an Earful. This will be a 2024 in review episode. The year just ended, and I'm going to be looking back at my top 25 albums of the year, some recent concerts, and maybe just mentioning a few albums that came out in December that I think you should be aware of. It's going to be a little bit different than my usual episode. No musical interludes, just me talking about the music that really got me through 2025 and those final concerts that I got to see in December. We'll start with those when we come back. Looking back at 2024, I saw 30 shows, 52 artists in 23 venues, including the three I'm about to talk about. On December 3rd, I went to the Domena Center to see Talk Ensemble, their year-ending concert. It was incredible. They actually had an opening set by Kijang Levi Liu, who I had not seen perform before, and they were incredible, using body implants to turn their veritable torso into an instrument and performing things that almost seemed like magic, where they would hit two sticks together and it would cause an eruption of sound in the room. It was an incredibly moving performance. Talk's four-work set was under the headline Holding and featured an opening piece by Sair Ahmad Farhat, who they interviewed on the podcast. You should definitely go and listen to that. The Talk Ensemble's Talk Editions podcast, just fantastic conversations. It was a really interesting work, fragmentary, but there was a drama to it that built over time. Next, we heard Zeynep Toraman's Veils. Toraman is just a fantastic composer. Heard her world premiere of Slow Poem by And Play a while back, and I've been just wanting more from Toraman, and this was a great piece. Then there was Inti Figus Visueda's Form the Fabric, a really wild piece with some guttural noises, distortions from the bass clarinet. It was a wild ride indeed. And then we got Root and Vein, Quintet as Solo, which is excerpted from Interbeing by Eric Wubbles. Rhythmic, jagged, full of wild yells and calls. It really sent us off in fantastic fashion into the night after a long standing ovation and a very nice little year-end celebration. So Talk Ensemble, always delivering something great. I'm looking forward to their 2025 too. They have a collaboration with Levi Liu in the works that is sure to be spectacular. On December 7th, we were back out at Baby's All Right to see Freak Slug. You heard me talk about this project of Xenia Genovese's quite a bit on this podcast, including my interview with Xenia, which you can hear in an earlier episode. She's just a fun person, a great musician. Really wonderful album came out in November, and I was so excited to see her perform live, and it really was just tons of fun. She played most of the album and her Joy Division cover, and just was full of personality and life. The place was packed, and it's no surprise that Freak Slug will be performing in larger venues when she returns in the spring of 2025, including Bowery Ballroom here in New York. Maybe I'll get to that show too, but it was really fun being up close and personal with Freak Slug. Finally, on December 14th, I went to Unruly Collective, a brownstone with multiple levels and multiple activities going on for Sagittarius Festival. This is in Bushwick, and I was there mostly to see Fun Facts, a really excellent new band with Ethan Woods and Matt Evans. Ethan Woods, I've talked about on this podcast before. He is a singer, songwriter, improviser. He does so many different things, and I wasn't expecting him to form a very cool art rock band in 2024. But in November, they put out Apartment Rock, really fun album, and this was the album release show. Matt and Ethan are accompanied by Susie Kim on keyboards and vocals, and Mike Powers on bass. what a great group they are. Just getting to watch Matt Evans, who I will say to the end of the earth is one of the greatest drummers alive, just watching him have fun playing in the groove of a rock band was a joy. And he sang on one song, sort of in a post punk bark, which was really excellent. It just was perfect. He seemed amused by the whole thing, but so much fun. It was a great night. There was food, there was birthday cakes, there was a wizard. There was also a set by Ben Saratin to open things off. He did one of his ambient sets, and it was just transporting. In between Ben and Fun Fact sets was Kasha Basha, who played a lively set of sort of polyglot, Latin-tinged indie rock with a jazz vibe to it as well, trumpet solos, percussion jams. It was really fun. The whole environment of that night at the Unruly Collective was nurturing, fun, just a warm, wonderful night. I had a long walk to the subway afterwards because there was a lot of trains not working, and I listened to Saratan's Alora, an album he put out earlier this year that was actually recorded in 2019, and it was the perfect soundtrack to my trudge to the A train. Anyway, that was a great way to end my concert season for 2024. When we come back, the top 25 of 2024. All right, now it's time for the top 25 albums of 2024. These are my favorite albums, the ones that got me through, the ones I had on repeat as soon as they came out. Over and over again would I listen. Starting with Freak Slug's I Blow Out Big Candles. I talked about her earlier, got to see her in concert. It's just a really fun dance pop album. It's sort of a imperfect pop, I might like to call it. There's scratchy guitars and post-punk sounds on there, driving bass, but the melodies are catchy. The lyrics are relatable. I Blow Out Big Candles by Freak Slug, number 25. Number 24 was Dreamers by Wild Ponies. Just one of our finest Americana country bands. They really deliver on all the things you would want from that kind of music, and not enough people are listening. Get to Dreamers today. Number 23 was Big Numbers, the self-titled album from the latest project by Richard O'Fritchtig. He wrote the lyrics. You can tell they just sound like great stuff from his Ocean Music days, but the sound is very expansive and open. And I have to say, you can get this on cassette. It is the best sounding cassette I have heard in years, maybe ever. It's just mastered to perfection. Number 22 was Psychedelic Anxiety by Francis Chang, who I got to see live this year. And man, what a great album. Just a terrific songwriter, great guitar player. It's so full of compassion and empathy that you will not be able to deny. Psychedelic Anxiety by Francis Chang. Number 21 was that surprise album from Kendrick Lamar, GNX. It stands for Buick Grand National. It's a cool car. It's a cool album. A little more levity on this album, but he can't help but go deep. My favorite song on it was Reincarnated, which just took upon a whole century's worth of black excellence in music and distilled it into one song, talking about how he's part of the line of people like John Lee Hooker, Nina Simone. And look, he brings it, he deserves it, he wants it all, we'll give it to him. Number 20 was Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. I call her a melodic genius. I think that's really what it comes down to. The lyrics are fun, the musical settings are great, but when it comes to just those melodies, they get into me. They get under my skin. Loved Hit Me Hard and Soft. Number 19, Sentiment by Claire Rousset. I said it was as well sequenced as an album as the sound she assembles in her tracks. It really takes you on a journey, a little like an audio diary. She's using the same collage techniques she did in her more ambient electronic albums, but with a pop song sensibility. So good. And there's also a Sentiment remixed album, which is just fantastic. Number 18 was Mizu's Forest Scenes, cello, electronics, deep musical knowledge, just a beautiful album. Mizu also released the darkly mesmerizing 423 this year, a choreographic collaboration that really should be heard. You can call that a number 18. Number 17, the terrific Noise Uprising by Christopher Trapani. This was on the last podcast. You should have heard it then. 19 songs, each named after a harbor town, performed by the guitar quartet Zwirm and two extraordinary singers. Just a wild album, Noise Uprising by Christopher Trapani. Number 16, The Wondrous Keeper of the Shepherd by Hannah Francis, one of the best singer-songwriters around. I'm so happy I finally discovered her, because this was not her first album by a long shot. And the expertise and command shows throughout Keeper of the Shepherd. Number 15, I cheated a little bit. I call this the Slash Sound. 2 albums on the Slash Sound label, IR's Detroit Densha Seikatsu and Kuma's Koniwa. These are both featured on the podcast, along with an interview by their creators. You should find those. If you like electronic music, these are the albums you should be listening to. And you should also be listening to Elsa Hewitt, whose Chaos Emeralds is my number 14 album of 2025. She really just always puts something so personal into her soundscapes. I absolutely love it. She has a new album coming out called Dominant Heartstrings. You can hear 8 of those songs already. She's put them out as singles. Number 13, Freako, Where We've Been, Where We Go From Here. Fantastic Chicago band. They do the quiet, loud, quiet thing. They do tender ballads. They do noisy sections. Just another great band from Chicago. I'm surprised at some of the Chicago tastemakers who are not talking about Freako, but maybe they didn't get a chance to see them live like I did. Number 12 is the glorious No Glory by H. Pruz. Hannah Prusinski, just one of the fantastic voices of our time. Beautiful guitar player, wonderful songwriting. No Glory, get to it. Number 11 is Delight by Arushi Jain. More fantastic electronic music. Delight is the word. It's just so gorgeous. You just kind of sink into it. We will take a little break and then we'll come back for the top 10. Starting with number 10, here we go. Talia Ensemble and the Harlem Chamber Players. Their recording of Julius Eastman's Feminine. They really made a definitive recording of this that takes all the humanity of the original 1974 version and puts it into a new context, not only technologically, but historically. Beautiful, beautiful recording. Number 9, Anastasia Coop's Darning Woman, one of the most original artists of our time. I still can't believe I got to see her without almost knowing anything about her, and my jaw just dropped when she opened for Lael Neal. Her approach to songwriting, singing, and production results in obdurate creations that seem to exist out of time. If you have not heard Darning Woman yet, you have not heard the music of 2024. The same could be said for More Mothers, The Great Bailout at number 8. A fantastic, terrifying, emotional, cinematic takedown of the British role in the slave trade. It's just, it is education, as she says, but it's also just pure art. Maybe her best album. Number 7, Boogarines, Bakuri, Brazil's finest psych rock band. I haven't heard an album from them in several years, and they really just, their mastery of the studio is beautiful, but when they take off, it's almost as if they're not even touching the earth. Number 6, or Best Offer, Center, another one of those great originals that I discovered in 2024, actually in 2023 when the first single came out from this album. I got to see them live twice in 2024. They are just so great. Michael Hirsch, his opera Papilla was my number 5 album of the year. He takes an old story and puts it into completely contemporary context. Amazing singing by Ah Young Hong. Just one of the operas that should exist for all time from 2024. Number 4, Faye Webster, Underdressed at the Symphony. She never misses, in my opinion, and this is just such a fantastic album. You can't stop listening to it. There's something about it where she seems to be almost singing herself to sleep or something, and you just kind of fall into it. I love Faye Webster. I'm going to see her in February for the first time ever at Radio City Music Hall. Number 3, Cindy Lee's Diamond Jubilee. Now, almost everything I've talked about, actually everything I've talked about on this podcast so far, has been played on this podcast, but not Cindy Lee. I could not get them to offer up the permission to put it on the show, but it is on Bandcamp now. It was on YouTube only for a while, and his GeoCities site. It's also coming out on vinyl, and I'm getting a copy because my daughter gave me one for my birthday. So that's coming in February too. I'm very excited about that. Just an absolute homage and ode to everything that makes rock and roll great. Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee. One thing you should listen for when you listen to it is how many songs just rock without any percussion whatsoever. Patrick Flegel, Cindy Lee, the guitar playing is so extraordinary that it can just do anything. Number 2 was Mahashmashana, Father John Misty. That came out in November, and it was even better than I could have imagined. It really is returned to top form for our father. His best since Pure Comedy, in my opinion, and I just can't stop listening to it. I had, I guess, Time Makes Fools of Us All on the podcast, but the whole album is just one amazing song after another. Number 1, the number 1 album of 2024 for me, the one that just became a pillar for me to lean on, was My Light, My Destroyer by Cassandra Jenkins. Just what an incredible songwriter, singer, album assembler. The way she puts things together with the field recordings and little interstitial things, it becomes an entire experience. And if you work a little bit harder at it, you can find the deluxe edition, which has an additional 15 minutes of music, including an amazing cover of Hoagie Carmichael's Stardust. What a perfect song for her to cover, and what a perfect way to end the top 25 of 2024. But that is by no means the end of the discussion of the great records of 2024. I will have genre-specific lists coming out fast and furiously, or maybe not so fast, but definitely furiously, starting with the classical, moving on to electronic, jazz, Latin, global, hip-hop, R&B, and reggae, reissues, rock, folk, etc. It's all coming down the pike. If you subscribe to An Earful on Substack, you will get it in your inbox. There's many, many great things to discuss. But before I leave you, a few records you might want to look out for from December. I just didn't have time to reach out and get permission to put them on the show. But we had Cassie Crut. This is a Palm spin-off band, really interesting art rock. Chow Malls put out their EP, Safe Than Sorry. Definitely check that out. Finesh, Mosaic, one of the most experienced and expert electronic musicians of the last 20 years or so. Cameron Winter, the lead singer of Geese, put out a solo album called Heavy Metal, and it is a wild ride. Indie rock, art rock, Americana, soul, prog. It's a wild stew of stuff, and you should definitely listen to it. Angel Olsen put out a beautiful project called Cosmic Waves Volume 1, where she is commissioning songs by some of her favorite artists, including Camp St. Helene, who's been on this podcast, and also singing songs by them. So really beautiful stuff from Angel Olsen. Her voice, maybe at its most ethereal on these recordings. Mary and the Junkyard, a very exciting band from England. Hope to hear more from them soon. There was the Infinite Future band More Ease collection that was just a wild ride of electronics. And finally, I need to mention the Gold Bolus Mandatory Liberation Volume 1 compilation. That is on Bandcamp only. It is a fundraising collection of some of the best avant-garde music around right now. It is for Palestinian liberation. I highly recommend listening to the Gold Bolus label in general, but hearing the Mandatory Liberation Volume 1 movement will give you an inside look at the health of this very particular part of the music scene, and it's for a good cause. With that, I will say farewell to 2024. I hope to see you in a month. I'm not sure the direction of this podcast right now. Time is a very precious quantity for me right now, and I will do my best to spread the wealth and the word about great music throughout 2025. Until then, thank you so much for listening. This is Jeremy Shatton for An Earful. Thanks as always to the Droplets, Am Parsley, Holly Miranda, and Chris Maxwell for my theme song. And you can find me everywhere there is a social network to be found. And I would be most grateful if you subscribed to this podcast, rate it, review it, share it, and also subscribe to my Substack, anearful.substack.com. If you become a paid subscriber, you'll support everything I do here, and you also gain access to all the archives of pieces I've put out since joining that platform. Thanks again for listening. I look forward to discussing all the great music to come in 2025. Until then, be well, take care of yourself, your friends, your family, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. This is Jeremy Shatton.
Running in every direction. It'll be a very long time until you know what I want to show you. Come on, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. I want to show you. It'll be a very long time till you know what I know. And I want to show you. Let's go, 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 let's go,